What unusual body part turns you on? Oh wow, I'm watching Transformers right now. As I read that comment, is there something with her thumbs or something? Wait, does she not have any, and so she has to grab things betwixt her index finger and middle finger, so much so that her pointer finger has kind of bowed inward from years of reapportionment? Question mark. As an Asian American woman who was once engaged to a white man, I realized he had a particular smell that kinda repulsed me, but I could never put my finger on it. It turns out my ex's diet of fast food and chugging milk by the gallon, especially with eating ice cream at the same time, was part of his body odor chemistry. Now I realize I am attracted to men who smell like a healthy diet. Pheromones are no joke. 7th grade science teacher said symmetry in faces is generally what equaled physical attractiveness. That used to be the thought, but with the creation of Photoshop and the ability to make images of perfectly symmetrical faces, researchers actually found that people prefer some level of imperfection, even if only minor changes are made to a natural face. Perfect symmetry puts us on the edge of the uncanny valley. This, pretty toes, heels, soles, the whole bit does it for me. Yeah, see, I lucked out y'all. My wife takes care of her feet, gets a pedicure regularly, nails painted and done up nice, lotions her feet every morning and night too, nice and soft all day every day. The best part is, when I told her, she wasn't weird about it at all, even embraced it. She went ahead and started wearing toe rings and anklets. Drives me crazy in the best way. When I was 17, I was sitting in a hair salon while my friend was getting a cut. This guy around my age came up to me and complimented my knees. He told me I have really nice ones and that he really liked them. I gave some awkward response but really took the compliment to heart. I kept thinking, alright, I've got nice knees. Fuck yeah. And for years I really thought that was one of my best qualities. A few years later my friend is dating this guy. He's hilarious. He's very odd but funny and jokes around a lot. He loves talking to strangers and making fun with them. One day I brought up the knee story and it turns out that he is the knee guy. He remembered messing around with a girl and talking about her knees. He confessed that he was just fucking around and didn't have a thing for knees at all. To this day I wonder if I have nice knees or not, but you just reconfirmed that people are into knees. BoJack Horseman, Season 4, Episode 11, Times Arrow. The entire episode, there wasn't a single laugh in that episode. Not one time I fucking moved my face. Not one time I wasn't glued to the screen. I really don't want to give it away. But BoJack had every reason to tell off his mother at the end, but he didn't, and given everything we saw prior to that ending, it somehow felt right. I'm never watching that episode again though. Once was enough. That absolutely batshit insane episode of X-Files with the inbred family living on the farm that had sex with their deformed, amputee mother, helped her give birth, and buried the dead fetuses in the backyard. Edit. Episode is called Home and it's with the Peacock family. Had to dig that one out of my repressed memories because that episode scarred me as a kid. A Breaking Bad scene also came to mind, but it's the one where Walt comes back in a frenzy to grab all the money he's made and make a run for it. But Skyler tells him that she gave it all to Ted. His manic laugh, the sound design, the phone call from Maria and the trippy detached rising overhead shot really struck a chord with me, and I found that weirdly disturbing. Such a solid ending scene. and it's definitely a turning point for the character. Check it out here if anyone's interested. Breaking Bad, when the kid on the bicycle, edit, dirt bike, discover Walt, Jesse and Todd were performing the train heist and Walt and Jesse are stunned and don't know what to do, so Todd takes over and kills the kid. Definitely a turning point when Jesse realizes just how far over his head he is in, and his existence is pure dread and only gets worse, as it does for them all. It was made even more shocking because that episode in general was relatively lighthearted up to that point, with the three of them working perfectly together to rob a train without anyone knowing it was happening. They get away with it and everyone is celebrating, and then everything falls apart in the span of about 10 seconds. The last scene in the second episode of Chernobyl, where they have to go into the water, I hated that so much. And the view from halfway down from BoJack Horseman, I was not ready for that emotionally. Edited to add, I think Time's Arrow might be my favorite episode in the show, which a lot of people have brought up, but it never really hit me as disturbing. For me, that episode added an entire extra world to that series, but it wasn't disturbing. I also loved Stupid Piece of Shit, just because the writing is just brilliant. Yeah, but no one knew they would live at the time. They just sent them there to do the heroic thing and die the ugly death a couple of days, weeks later. Then they survived and we learned water actually protects you. I mean, some people probably knew, but they might have not been there, and most of our everyday knowledge on do's and don'ts about radiation do come from what happened at Chernobyl. All that aside, that episode gave me literal nightmares. Man, I got into that show because I heard it was hilarious. I started watching after it ended, so I just started binging. But then around season 3 I could only do one episode a day. I stopped for a few months before finally finishing the last season. It is one of the most well-written television shows I've ever seen. It's performed exceptionally well and deals with some unbelievably depressing material and handles it so well. I don't know that I can rewatch it, but I'm glad I did at least once. Juyuyud, the same thing happened to me, except I was 7 years old and terrified of the prospect of aliens and alien abductions, so therefore was scared shitless of the X-Files. Eventually, I summoned up enough courage to tune in one night. The night that home premiered, got about halfway through it when the brothers broke into the sheriff's house, beat the husband to death with his own baseball bat, then dragged the wife out from under the bed by her ankles. I noped the fuck off of that channel and never looked back. Fear factor when the contestants had to eat all these live-ass bugs off of a rope covered in honey hanging from the ceiling of a greenhouse. Then they had to like spit 'em out, blend 'em, and drink 'em. There were these giant green caterpillar-looking things that shot out massive juice when they bit 'em. I'm usually all for the gross stunt, but that one stuck out in my head as the first one to make me retch. Edit. Here I'm talking about fear factor and y'all listing some wild ass shit lol. I should have read the comments and checked the temp in the room first. I didn't know it was this kind of party. I was 12-ish and watching an episode of CSI at home with my best friend. I hadn't seen many episodes, but this episode was about a missing child. The mother was heartbroken, had kept his room exactly as it was the day he went missing. Well, it turned out that she was suffering from postpartum psychosis and had murdered him and buried him in the backyard. She was devastated when they proved she had murdered him, as she had no memory of it. My mom was suffering from severe postpartum depression at that time after having my younger brother and had been in and out of the hospital. That episode was so extremely disturbing. upsetting, and terrifying to me. I felt like I had been physically punched in the stomach. I found the mom's story so profoundly sad, but also couldn't get the fear of that story out of my head for a long time. For me it was Omar. I love anti-heroes, amoral characters that have a good side despite their evil ways. The boy was truly a psycho from the start and was never afraid of Omar. So it's not shocking in hindsight, but still, the amount of men looking for him and his ability to hide and attack from the shadows all made his demise that much more shocking. He was like a check on the drug dealers, one evil to balance another evil, and he got out of the blue. Saw an interview with Cranston in which he said that was the worst moment of his acting career. If I recall correctly, he said that at the first shoot, once she started choking, he looked at her and all he could see was his daughter, and he momentarily thought he was letting his daughter die. He broke down in tears and had to leave the set. Edit, maybe oversold it a bit, but here is the link. There's another one that I can't find. https://to.b/ozil5qme4. The pig scene from Black Mirror's national anthem. For those who don't know, the Prime Minister was blackmailed into having sex with a pig on national television in order for terrorists to release a princess they kidnapped. Icing on the trash cake, she was released 30 minutes before he had sex with the pig and he had no idea. The first scene of The Handmaid's Tale when June and Hannah were kidnapped by Gilead. Her screams and agony, plus when Hannah asked June much later in the show, "Why didn't you come for me?" I've watched and rewatched the show many times, but still can't bring myself to rewatch the first episode. That's just so hard to watch. So there's this episode of House where a gunman comes and takes a bunch of hostages and wants medical treatment, but he wants all of the drugs tested on someone else first so he knows they aren't just trying to trick him. Being self-destructive, 13 volunteers, and takes all of the drugs the patient needs to take. There's a scene at the end where they've found their answer and the drug that will save the gunman, but taking it will kill 13. 13 sits there with a syringe to her arm and a gun to her head, knowing that she's going to die. The only choice she gets is if she's going to kill herself or let the gunman kill her. Olivia Wilde's acting was spot on. 13's realization that she doesn't want to die after spending the whole episode martyring herself is haunting. House had quite a few of them, like when he performed surgery on his leg and Kuttner's suicide. But the episode Broken, which is probably my favorite episode in the series, has this one scene that really stands out for me. In the episode, House is institutionalized because he was starting to hallucinate due to the Vicodin abuse. He is of course the same person he was outside of those walls, super arrogant and manipulative. He tries to play the system so hard throughout the episode, so he can be released sooner. But Captain Holt, Dr. Nolan, is onto him. During his time there he meets a guy who is suffering delusions after he lost his wife on September 11th, where he thinks he is this superhero named Freedom Master. His is very manic at the beginning, but is soon broken down by one of the doctors to a near catatonic state, which House really hates. House seizes an opportunity to steal him away and take him on an unforgettable trip to cure him of his depression. They go to a carnival, where together experience simulated flight in the form of one of those powerful fans that make it seem like you're flying. House wanted to make him feel like a superhero again and bring out that happy person he met when he first came in, and he succeeds. Freedom Master is back and ecstatic as could be. The problem is that he slipped back into his delusion and now was convinced he could actually fly. So, as they are leaving the carnival, he jumps off the parking structure and nearly dies. This was something that House never saw coming, because he thought that he had cured him. It's such a sad and extremely powerful scene, but also disturbing because it really shows the true depth of what it's like to battle with mental illness. You don't just magically snap your fingers and it's gone. House was used to problems that had simple solutions and treatments as long as you found out what the initial problem was, but there are some things that aren't as easy. No one will remember this, but there was a show on when I was a kid called Too Close for Comfort starring Ted Knight. There was this one episode where Ted's character somehow had a self-portrait painted, and then if I recall right, he pushed another character down the stairs and was racked with guilt. As the episode goes on, every time he looks at the portrait, it becomes uglier and uglier and things happen to it. It was supposed to be funny, but it totally terrified me. I haven't seen that episode since, and it's vanished in the sands of time. I think they may have been trying some kind of riff on the 1945 Dorian Gray, but I didn't know it at the time. Season 9. Episode 1 of Grey's Anatomy. When Mark Sloan dies. During the episode, his character's health devolves to the point the viewer realizes he will die. Shortly before he passes, Mark experiences a phenomenon called terminal lucidity, which is a medical term that refers to a period of increased mental clarity and alertness during the dying process. The scene is particularly gut-wrenching for me to watch as I witnessed this happen to my father when he was in hospice care for terminal cancer. I'm a 40-year-old dude. My dad passed away 8 years ago, and that episode still brings me to full tears and ugly crying every single time my wife rewatches the series. I'm glad that someone else mentioned her. So many disturbing episodes to choose from. For ourselves, it was the one where a construction worker accidentally got some solvent spilled on him, and it was gradually stiffening his lungs until he'd no longer be able to breathe. The staff tried to keep him alive long enough for his wife to arrive and see him one time. We both had a good ugly cry after that. I'm rewatching AHS right now and struggling just as much as the first time through Asylum. It's such a disturbing premise to me and some of the scenes are just disgusting. The only other season that I remember that bothered me that much was Roanoke, specifically the part where they are impaled. I'll probably have to skip that on a rewatch. Just thinking about it makes me queasy. Sounds like the interviews with the actors that played in Flashpoint by the end of Season 5 and fans wanted to know why they weren't continuing such a successful show. The lead actor almost broke into tears and said the script had started following the actors home and questions of if this was real life would we have acted differently to save more lives. They ended the show for the mental health of the actors. The scene in Mr. Robot where Elliot tears into Bill is so fucking brutal. I felt so sorry for him that it was extremely uncomfortable to watch. If you died, would anyone care? Would they really care? Yeah, maybe they'd cry for a day, but let's be honest, no one would give a shit. They wouldn't. The few people that would feel obligated to go to your funeral would probably be annoyed and leave as early as possible. That's who you are. That's what you are. You're nothing to anyone, to everyone. Think about it, Bill, 'cause if you do, if you let yourself, you'll know I'm telling you the truth. So instead of wasting any more of my time, I need you to go call someone that matters, because Bill, You don't imagine being Bill and having someone tell you that you are completely worthless like that when you're just trying to do your job.